And we're looking good, you'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Brunton Bugle, your one-stop shop for all things Carlisle United. From Mervyn Day to Lucas Dawson and Bob Kelly to Tim Krul, we've got it covered. In today's episode we're going to look back on another pair of stalemates against Harrogate and Cheltenham, previewing United's final away trip of the season at Leyton Orient, as well as a news update and a roundup of what ex-Blues have been getting up to. I'm joined as ever by one of my co-hosts, and today it's Dan McLennan. Dan, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad, yeah. Bit of a shame the season's over, isn't it, really? But wasn't to be this year, was it?
Yeah, it's very un-Carlisle United not to take it to the last day, but yeah, we've run out of steam, haven't we? So
yeah, just didn't quite have enough, did they?
No.
Nice mix of players there in the intro as well.
Yeah, is there any link? Or
Absolutely not, it's all just randoms, really. But yeah, Bob Kelly's an interesting character. Doesn't get talked about enough as Carlisle United play. I only play like a handful of games, really, about 12, I think. But he was an England international. He managed the club for a brief while as well. But he also managed, I think, FC St Gallen and I think Sporting Lisbon as well in his career. Very unusual one, that one. You don't get that much with Carlisle United. There's a few other players out there, isn't there? I think there's at least a couple of managers who've managed in Holland quite a bit and also possibly in Turkey as well, seems to ring a bell. I'm not sure about that. We'll do some bits on them maybe in pre-season, one of the specials, I think. Let's get straight into the news then, Dan. More contract extensions been announced. Very kindly, they did this just after we recorded last week, didn't they? So we'd done all the bits about the previous four, which of course were Joe Riley, Jack Armour, Taylor Charters and Josh Dixon. But 3 more players have now been announced, and their deals have now been extended to the summer of 2022, and they are 32-year-old forward Luis Alessandra, 24-year-old defender Aaron Hayden, and 24-year-old midfielder Callum Guy. So that leaves just Imari Patrick and Gimme Toure, who are out of contract this summer but have 1-year extension options in their contracts. The other out of contract sort of senior players, if you want to call them that, Paul Farman, Nick Anderton, Reece Bennett, Morgan Feeney, Frande Zanzala and Kedwin Scott. No massive surprise to see those 3 extended, was there?
No, you do wonder if the fact that we're a couple of days later, I wonder if we've maybe tried to get Hayden and Guy to sign completely new deals. Given the two of the better players and obviously worth a little bit.
I wonder if the Guy one's the one that stands out because Hayden was announced the same time as Alessandra. So I wonder if that one was more just we've done it and we'll sort it in the summer. I wonder if the Guy one, they wanted to try and get tied down then, but they having to wait till the summer. There's no massive issue with that. Look, if they go in the summer, we're going to get good money for them now, at least anyway. That's the important thing. Yeah. So that's just the way it is. And of the rest, I mean, I think the only one there, maybe he's looking at it and thinking, maybe I should have been given had mine triggered, was probably Patrick, I think, maybe. He's maybe looking that a bit nervously now, thinking, hang on. I thought I might get extended here. I think Toure probably can look at it and say, it's not going to happen here, is it? So,
yeah, I mean, it's at the front end where we're going to probably see the most changes over the summer, isn't it? You know, I mean, they've already said Coyote will unlikely come back. You know, Patrick and Toure, inconsistent probably. It's a fair word for them. So, you know, Zanzala's to be decided and Scott. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in our attack.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's going to be a bit of change around in that area of the field. I've no doubt about that. Let's move on to the next bit then, Dan. Reserves defeated in the Central League Cup final. So this obviously took place on Wednesday afternoon. United's second string fell at the final hurdle on Wednesday as they were beaten 2-0 by Championship side Bournemouth in the Central League Cup final at St George's Park. It was a very young United side, wasn't it? Other than Gimme Toure, really. They were all kids, essentially, against, I think, was quite a strong Bournemouth side, wasn't it? And did the best, but it just wasn't quite enough on the day, was it?
Yeah, I mean, us playing Tuesday night at Cheltenham obviously didn't help us for this, you know.
Yeah.
The lads who were on the bench would probably have played normally, you know, like Scott would have got a proper run out. One plus from it was Morgan Feeney got an hour in.
Yeah, it was really good to see, wasn't it?
And I noticed he was subbed on the hour, and it was almost like it was premeditated.
Well, Skelton's come out in the comments and said the aim was always to give him just an hour, basically, just to game.
You wonder if he'll possibly make an appearance in the last two games when, you know, McDonald's out at the moment, who could be back, we're not sure, and Bennett possibly got another niggle. So it'd be nice to see Feeney get a game, and as we've already said before, you know, he's one that we think is worth taking the gamble on.
Yeah, the thing is, though, he's not played a first-team game in months, has he? And that's the risk of putting him in, so I wonder if maybe he would have been possibly left on the bench, possibly maybe for those last two games, maybe. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Josh Dixon was captain for the Blues as well, actually. Nice to see him get another run out as well with his injury problems of late. Finally, Dan, it's not so much news, but quite an amazing, wasn't it? David Holdsworth speaks. We finally heard from our Lord and Saviour, the turtleneck-wearing legend that is. It's about 3 months without any sort of major interview of him, wasn't it, I think?
He's like buses, isn't he?
Yeah, as soon as
you don't hear of him for ages, and you end up with multi-segmented interviews.
Still waiting for parts 5 and 6, though, aren't we?
Well, yes, yeah.
But yeah, it after so long of not hearing from him, especially during that bad period, which I know he sort of said, we didn't want to put pressure on Beech. If anything, it puts more pressure on him, the fact that we're not hearing a single thing from the upper corridor, which, you know, gets fans talking, doesn't it? So there you go. But I mean, just picked out, you covered a number of topics, Tim, and just a few of the bits he picked out that I've picked out from it. I mean, the first one was mainly about whether there was any doubts about manager Chris Beech's future during the poor run of form, and it was pretty clear from the interview there was no doubt, wasn't there? I think they were very comfortable, weren't they? They understand the background situation, which is fine. The bit that's puzzled me, though, is this quote I've picked out. He said, "He's a manager and person who I think continue to grow with us. Would I have been more comfortable with Sam Allardyce in the building or Joe Kinnear or Jose Mourinho? No." Right? I can almost understand Allardyce and Mourinho in there. But where the hell's Joe Kinnear come from in that?
Yeah, it's a very random trio of managers. Like you say, Allardyce and Mourinho you could get away with, but Joe Kinnear's a bit of a random one, isn't it?
It was a strange one, that wasn't it? Yeah. So yeah, the second bit was about the lack of training facilities during the winter period and the need for the club to improve their setup in that area, in terms of maybe building like a community facility working with the council. And the quote from this, I think this was a strange quote as well. He said, "I would love our council and whoever it may be to come along and say, we'll work with you to do that. I would love people to say, Carlisle's got to move into the future with a facility. There are good people in Carlisle. I don't have time to make the calls and sit in those meetings, but in the future I'd love to be able to sit down with the council, planning and whoever it may be, welcome them and say, let's work together." Right, this links into another bit that he picked out. He was banging on about the shirt launch dates and how great the new shirts are, and talking about the sponsor as well, the new kit sponsors. Why is the director of football doing that? It just continues to baffle me. Surely the whole point of director of football is to oversee the footballing strategy of the club, not deal with, you know, what kit materials you're going to have or what colours you're going to have for away kits and who's going to be the sponsor on the shirt. Their job should be talking to the manager, saying, right, what's a big issue here? We can't train during the winter. Right, well, maybe we need to look long term for the benefit of the club to find themselves a good facility that could potentially make money as well for the club. And his main concern is whether we were going to have an orange away kit last season and seeing all the fans wearing it. I don't know what you think on that. It just baffles me.
It's random because, as you say, first of all, I think a director of football's a necessity in the modern game.
Oh yeah, I agree with that completely.
You know, it's how the game's gone. You know, it allows your manager isn't a manager as such these days, other than all head coaches really. Yeah. But you know, training facilities is certainly something that would come under his sort of, I can't think of the word, his control. And, to say he doesn't have the time to make those calls, we're not talking with agents 24/7.
Yeah.
Most of our squad is signed on. We will only be making maybe half a dozen changes in the summer. What else is he doing with his time? Well, obviously he's sorting sponsorship deals out and whatnot.
Getting his textiles out, doing some designs, and stuff like that. It's odd, but hey, there you go. Just the way it is, I guess.
It's Carlisle United all over, isn't it? Nothing's ever simple.
No, definitely not. All right, well, that's the news section done then, Dan. Let's move on to the match review section. For the last time of the season, we're going to review 2 matches. It feels weird, doesn't it? We've been doing 12 weeks of this. Absolutely insane. So while it's still mathematically possible to make the playoffs, I think there's more chance of a person from Whitehaven or Workington admitting that they're a jam eater than the Blues extending their season beyond the 8th of May. We need to basically win both the games, overturn a 10-goal deficit in the goal difference, and see all 3 of the teams above us pretty much lose every game. We'd maybe to be able to afford 2 draws in there to make it. It's not going to happen, is it? Essentially, it's over, basically.
Yeah. It would be a very, very unlikely set of results, especially when you look at some of the opposition for the teams above us in the next 2 games.
Yeah, you'd imagine that there's going to be at least 1 win amongst those.
Yeah.
Amazed if there wasn't. 2 very contrasting performances, but 2 identical results, 2 draws, which sums up why we're missing out on the top 7 spot, doesn't it? It's that lack of consistency and cutting edge over the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks that's really cost us, hasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, we've turned into a team that draws a game a lot suddenly, haven't we? Is it 5 out of the last 6 were draws? And I was in work last night and I was looking, when I was having a break, I was looking. We've not won away to a single team above us. I think we've got 3 or 4 draws and the rest are defeats. We're a little bit better at home against the teams above us. We've won 3 or 4 of them, but if you're only picking up 3 or 4 points from 27 from the teams above you away from home, I'm going to be harsh here. We don't deserve to be in there, do we?
No, definitely not. We haven't been good enough in those. We're a little bit of a flat track bully this season, aren't we? Really, we're generally beating the teams below us by that bad run.
The teams above us we struggle against, and the teams below us we basically win.
Yeah, essentially that's the way
by the odd result here and there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the games themselves then, Dan. First up, the Harrogate Town game. We talked about how bad the Port Vale game was this week. That was just the general quality of the game. In terms of performances, this has got to be one of the worst performances in the first 45 minutes at least from the Blues this season, isn't it? They just looked at absolute shambles at the back. Constantly caught out, particularly with a bit of pace. People might pick out the fact that Anderton was playing centre-back, but I don't think he was necessarily the worst defender. I think generally just all around as a team, we were awful in that especially the first 15 minutes. We just didn't look like we got out the changing rooms. No,
it wasn't good viewing, was it? Harrogate clearly came to have a go. They've got nothing to play for. They can play with a bit of freedom. And, the one that was ruled out for offside, it would have been interesting to see on the old VAR lines, wouldn't it?
Borderline, wasn't it, at best?
Yeah, probably got a bit of a result with that one. They just looked very, very good. Muldoon and Steed basically took the piss out of our back line.
Muldoon, he looked a good player, didn't he? It's only the fact that he's 32 in May that you look at him and think he's probably not the sort of player you'd sign. Otherwise, you'd be thinking he's the kind of player you want at your club because he was lively, he used the ball really well. And he likes it. He's got good pace for a 31-year-old, especially. You've got to say that.
Yeah.
And like I said, John Stead up front. He's played at the highest level, and you can see what a clever player he is. And you'd imagine that the younger players at their club are learning a hell of a lot from him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, especially was it Mark Beck actually came on for him, wasn't it? And Beck's probably learned a lot in the last couple of seasons playing alongside and training alongside. But no, Harrogate looked, a decent team. Fair play to them. They're probably disappointed they didn't win the game.
No, they should be. They should have won it, really. The way they played, they were definitely the better side by a long way. I mean, we just look very ponderous and slow at the back, and it's like we went out there and sort of expected Harrogate to have their flip-flops on and got the beach towels out, whatever, and ready for the summer.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They were the complete opposite. They looked like the team that were going for a win to get themselves in the playoffs.
The thing that showed how bad the 45 minutes were the fact that Chris Beech made 3 subs at half-time, which is something he never does, so that just shows how off the boil we really were.
Yeah, I think he made a bit too much about how good we were second half in his post-match interviews. He's been, over the last couple of games, saying, we were bad first half Harrogate, but look how well we did, and we should have won the game against Harrogate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the stats here. We had 1 shot on target against Harrogate, and that's obviously the goal.
Yeah.
We had 10 shots ourselves, but Harrogate had 10 shots on there, 4 on target. We're pretty lucky.
There wasn't many memorable efforts, was there?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It just felt like a game that sort of petered out towards the end as well. Obviously there was that one chance we had. They hit the bar where Kedwin Scott hit it across goal, and the lad smashed it against his own bar, which would have been like the most undeserved 3 points you've ever seen in your life, wouldn't it? It was ridiculous.
It would have been a robbery if we'd picked them up.
I mean, talking about subs there, we obviously mentioned 3 at half-time, and one of those was Ethan Walker, someone we've not seen much of since he's come back on loan. And he was really impressive in this game, and actually against Cheltenham, which we'll cover in a minute, but he looked really lively and good, and it makes you think to yourself, why on earth have we not been using him over the last few months? He looked like a player who can make a difference in games.
We were on about this, weren't we, afterwards, and we worked out, I think he'd played just over an hour in 8 appearances off the bench, with his longest run out being 15 minutes prior to this. But I think it's fair to say he was probably our man of the match on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely.
And as you say, again, came off the bench on midweek and put another. He did enough in them 2 appearances to make you think, is he worth having next season?
I think it's definitely worth an inquiry, because I think he's only going to get better. He looks a young lad who's, I think he might have learnt a bit of a lesson almost from this last half a season of, actually, I do need to work hard to get into him. I can only imagine he's not been doing it in training. That's the only explanation I can think of, because I can't see any reason why. I mean, I like Toure, but he's not done enough in the second half of the season to justify being picked much. I can only imagine that's the only reason why he's not being picked ahead of Toure, because he looks like he can make a bigger impact than him in games.
Speaking of which, the observant amongst the Blues will have noticed that it appeared that Toure wasn't on the bench in the second half.
Yeah, interesting.
Whether he wasn't happy that he didn't come on in those 3 subs, or but he wasn't in the 18 on the Tuesday, and he actually played in the game against Bournemouth instead, didn't he? Which was...
It's almost one of the ones, and I'm sure the club will deny it's the case, but it almost feels like it was almost a punishment.
Yeah,
you've got to go to St George's Park and play in a Reserve Cup final instead of playing in this massive game we need to win in League Two. Because I know that the reason the club put up on Twitter was that there was enough attacking options on the bench that we didn't need Toure, but it never quite really sat with me that, because he's when have we ever dropped him previously this season?
Yeah.
I think it's fairly inevitable. We'll get on to it in a minute about whether he's going to be here next season, which I think we both agree is probably not. But yeah, so we finally got the goal, got a draw, but it just felt so flat afterwards. It felt like the last few weeks really catching up on us, and we've just missed a big opportunity. We just needed 2 wins in those run of draws. That would have been enough.
Yeah.
To put us really in contention, but there you go. Yeah. Let's move on to the Cheltenham Town game then, Dan, because this was night and day from the Harrogate game, wasn't it? Arguably one of the best performances we've put in for a long time. Interestingly, someone will point this out to me, over the last 5 weeks or so, we've put in some excellent performances on the Tuesday night games. Really, really impressive. But the Saturday games that followed have been dreadful.
Yeah, you think it would be the other way around, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's really, really weird. But the last, even with the look back at the Bolton defeat, we beat Crawley, we beat Scunthorpe. There was another game before that, possibly. I can't remember.
Drew at Newport.
Yes, you're right. I mean, you look at those games, that run of games. We've been excellent in the midweek games. We've just been dreadful at the weekends for some reason. But yeah, we looked so much better in this game, didn't we? Yeah.
We looked like a team that deserved to be in the mix, didn't we? If you consider Cheltenham got promoted due to the draw. I mean, they probably eased off in the last few minutes, knowing a draw was enough. But and the big talking point was obviously the change in formation.
Yeah, we've been crying out for him to try something different for a while, and he finally does it with 3 games to go. It just feels frustrating it's taken this long to do something, but you do wonder if, I think he's more or less admitted it, hasn't he, that he basically did it to counter Cheltenham's threats and, maybe take advantage of them because he's seen other teams have played free at the back against them and done well and looked to do it then. And he sort of said, well, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll use it much next season, which is a little bit disappointing because I think I'd like to see us have more options, and I think it works well. And I think it suits Anderson really well as well because he can play as one of those centre-backs, either side of the central centre-back, and he's able to push forward a bit, as is Hayden. Hayden can bring the ball out quite well. The pair of them are good at that. And you could have someone like Bennett sitting in the middle, potentially, if you really needed to.
And it also suits the games of Tanner and Armour, doesn't it? Who are both full-backs who can get up and cross a ball. It's it is a formation which suits quite a lot of our players. But, I think it'll probably, for now, be a one-off. But, one thing we didn't mention there was, obviously, talking about switching to counter Cheltenham. The other big thing was Magnus Norman starting, which he basically said was because of his height.
Yeah, we all know the big long throw threat from Cheltenham is, Ben Tozer's got their highest number of assists this season, and that's all come from his long throws, basically. So it tells you all you need to know there. But I thought Norman had a decent game, actually. I mean, I have to admit,
there was a save he made in the second half when he got down low.
That was excellent.
To his corner, and that got us the point because that for a big lad to get down so low so quickly, I thought it was an excellent save.
Yeah, I think he's a decent keeper. I still think Farman's the better of the two of them. I saw an interesting comment. Someone suggested that he'd been picked because he was more mobile than Farman, which I'm not sure I agree with. I don't think I've seen many keepers for us that are more mobile than Farman.
Yeah.
He just seems incapable of sitting still, to be honest, when you watch him with his football Tourette's. Norman looks a bit more like a classic goalkeeper, doesn't he? A bit more like an Adam Collin, doesn't he? He's not as mobile, but he's good in the decent shot stopper, and he got a decent kick on him as well, to be fair. Gets it forward. Not as big as Farman's, but I mean, Farman's just a bit of a freak when it comes to things like that, isn't it? I suppose. But there you go. But no, decent game from him, and it'd be interesting to see whether he just started the weekend, actually, whether he gets a little run maybe before the end of the season. The next bit I've got down, a tale of two coyotes. He looked, for me, that's my opinion, others may disagree, I thought he looked absolutely shocking and disinterested against Harrogate, despite the fact that he scored the equaliser. I thought he was sort of strolling through the game. I know that Lummy made some comments during the commentary, didn't he, about the fact that, he saw him on the side of the pitch at 2:00 with his mobile phone, and he said, back in my day it might be different now, but once you got into the dressing room at 1:00, your phone's in your bag and it stays there because you're concentrating on the game, and that made you feel like, he's basically signed out for the season, hasn't he? Now, maybe he got a kick up the backside at half time and, obviously got his goal, but I thought he was really poor against Harrogate. But then against Cheltenham, he was back to his best. He was an absolute menace. I know he was playing down the middle, which probably helped a little bit as well, but he was an absolute nuisance for those defenders. He scored a great goal with the header, and then nearly scored another brilliant goal with that cross from Anderson that he headed against the bar. I mean,
it didn't have hit the bar, that one, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you just feel that if he could cut that inconsistency out of his game, he will be a top player, won't he?
Yeah. That thing with the phone, it's slightly disrespectful if it's right, I mean, apparently, he was changed into his kit by then, so, I know phones are everywhere these days, but, you don't see Usain Bolt playing on his mobile just before he's about to run 100 metres, do you?
He probably would do it. He probably still winning it, wouldn't he?
He's probably the wrong one to use it as an example, to be fair, because he's such a freak of nature. But No, it's the Tuesday night Coyote, as you say, was excellent. As we've already said, we doubt he'll be back next season. The club have basically said that.
Yeah.
He'll either go on loan in League One or play for Rotherham in League One if they go down. So, yeah. But if players like that in the last couple of games, we'll probably have better memories of it.
Well, he only needs 2 more goals to get double figures for the season. I'm sure that'll probably be his target, won't he? Get a couple of goals in those 2 games and finish off in a good note. Another player had a good game against Cheltenham, our mate George Tanner. Not only did he have a good game, he had a good game in 4 different positions through the game, didn't he? It's just really, really impressive how well he played in this match. He started out as right wing back. Obviously, Reece Bennett, sadly, we'll cover that in a minute, but picked up another injury and had to go off after about 20 minutes. Divine came on and moved to right wing back, and Alma came into centre back, and Tanner moved over to left wing back, where he caused problems because they knew he was going to cut back onto his right foot, but he did it every time. And then second half comes out, and he's been shifted up into left wing effectively, wasn't he, as a front three? And then there was another sub. I can't remember exactly when it was now, but he moved over to the right wing as well, didn't he? He looked comfortable in all those positions, and he looks like a player who, I know he's playing right back for us now, and he's been excellent for us there. He looks capable of playing a few different positions, doesn't he? And maybe he hasn't quite settled on his final role in the team.
I think a lot of that comes back to, if you remember when we did interview him in the special Man United, to do sort of have a season where they cover all positions, which obviously shone through in this game because he was superb in all the positions. So I mean I think he probably is a right back now, but he's certainly. He wouldn't look out of place playing right midfield or right wing if we needed him to. Yeah,
definitely. Another picking up players here, but I think Anderton as well. I think full credit to him because he didn't have a great game against Harrogate. I think anyone would accept that. He struggled a little bit. Slightly different role in this game, but I thought he put in a real captain's performance, and especially when he had to move to be the centre of the centre back. So rather than playing as a left-sided in a back three, he played as a central player, didn't he? With Armour one side of him, Hayden the other. And he really led from the front, didn't he? He had a really, really good game in this match.
Yeah. It was, again, chalk and cheese, similar to Coyote, and Anderton, he played well. And, he's one who we haven't mentioned contract-wise for next season.
I think he'll get a deal.
I think he will, especially being captain.
Yeah, good, reliable player. He'll do a job most of the time for you, so you'll be able to do that. Yeah. Another crap ref there, wasn't it, Dan? Just so frustrating at how bad he was. Some of the foul decisions he was giving. I mean, he let Hayden get away with a lot, although I didn't think many of them were fouls. That Sam Smith up front for them was just diving all over the shop, wasn't he? He was just pathetic. And then that bit at the end, there was a rugby tackle on Mellish down by the corner flag. Gives a free kick, no booking. And then Anderton brings one of their lads down when they're breaking away, and he gets booked for it literally a minute later.
Yeah.
It's just baffling how bad some of the refs have been this season. I mean, the free kick for their equaliser as well. I mean, that was soft, to say the least.
Yeah.
He's given it for an arm up by Anderton, but he's not smashed an arm in the lad's face, has he? His arm up because he's going for the header, which, you do, don't you? You can't go for a header with your arms by your side. It's just not possible. It's ridiculous. I mentioned that before, didn't we? We dealt really well with the long throw from Cheltenham. I mean, it's a hell of a weapon, that Tozer throw, and it's ridiculous. He practically gets it to the far post.
It's a low league Ronnie Delap, isn't it?
I'd say it's better than Delap's throw. I genuinely think it's longer.
Yeah.
The distance he gets in it, but we dealt with it. And
it certainly puts ours to shame, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and ours is probably the second best in the division, you'd argue, Coyotes. Interesting, Beech talked about this, and he said that that's one of the reasons he went for 3 at the back, because obviously when they're taking the long throw, they haven't got Tozer in there as to win the header, and Aaron Hayden would normally pick up Tozer, so he basically said Hayden's then free to just go for the ball and win the header, and he pretty much did every time. He had another excellent game as well. I mean, he was poor against Harrogate too, but he looked like he really got back to his best as well. Real shame about the Bennett injury though, isn't it? I mean, came back in that game against Harrogate at half-time, probably earlier than we expected. Did a job, got us through that second half. Started this game, and he did well. I'm not sure it's a recurrence of the injury or not. It wasn't really very clear, was it, from what we saw?
No, but it could possibly be his last appearance for us.
Yeah.
It's unlikely he'll be here next season unless we offer an incredible deal.
It'd be interesting to see, because obviously they clearly think highly of Morgan Feeney. It looks like he's probably going to get offered a new deal.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he does stay. Let's talk briefly then about Beech's post-match interview. He was very emotional, wasn't he? Very emotional. He's been very calm and collected over the last 4 or 5 weeks, not getting too excited or anything. But after this one, you could feel a bit of the frustration coming out in him, couldn't you? Like he felt that we just missed out and we just weren't quite good enough to get there, didn't
we? Yeah. We also thought he maybe slightly misunderstood a couple of the questions, didn't we?
Yeah, he seemed to be getting a little bit riled and a bit his back put up by some of the questions that James Phillips particularly was asking on Radio Cumbria. And they weren't bad questions. They were good, positive questions, actually, and saying like, trying to give him a chance to talk positively about it. And he's like he heard a different question in his head.
Yeah.
And was a bit annoyed about it. And the way, I don't think doing those interviews over the phone helps, does it? I don't think, without being face-to-face and being able to correspond with somebody, it's a lot more difficult when you do an interview like that. Yeah. So I think that might be part of it. But I think he did say himself, to be fair, that maybe he needs to take a step back and reflect a couple of days after the game rather than at that point knowing that the season was over. It's clearly a very emotional moment for him. Maybe, like he said, I just need to wait a couple of days, analyse the game and come back and say, fair enough, it didn't happen, but we build for next season. That's the key thing. Before we go on to the halftime break and go into the match preview stuff, Dan, couple of general points. No Toure or Furman on the bench against Cheltenham. Furman was also missing against Harrogate, and as we've already mentioned, Toure didn't come on. You'd imagine that's probably a sign that those two are not going to be here next season, isn't
it? To be fair to Furman, they did say he's got a niggle. Yeah. So,
Fair enough. I wasn't sure on that one. But
yeah, but agreed. I'm the Dean Furman fan club, but looks like we'll be having to pick a new player to support.
Yeah, saying that. Right, let's take a half-time break then, Dan, and we'll be back to preview the Leyton Orient game.
Hi, this is George Tanner. You are listening to the Brunton Bugle.
And we're back for part 2. Yes, so now we're going to be looking ahead to the one game for once. It feels weird not previewing 2 games, doesn't it? It's a strange kind of feeling. So we're looking ahead to the trip to Leyton Orient. It's just gutted, isn't it? Because what a trip it would have been this weekend to go down to London to potentially, I mean, if things had been different with no COVID, we could have been challenging for promotion or securing promotion, couldn't we? And
bank holiday weekend.
What a trip it would have been. Really, really gutting. It's almost a little bit, not pleasing, but decent at least that we get the chance, hopefully, to do it next season when fans are allowed back into the grounds. But yeah, so we're looking ahead to this game. And as ever, we've managed to get an opposition podcast to speak to us. And for this one, we've got the guys from the LODown podcast for I think the 3rd or 4th time this season. Which we're best mates with them now, aren't we? We've never stopped talking to them. So it's instead of Dale this time, with Julien from the LODown podcast. I spoke to him the other day about how he felt Orient season had gone and what his hopes are for next season. Julien, looking back at what's been a bit of a long slog of a season, I think, for every club in League Two, and with the squad you've got at Orient, are you happy enough with where you're probably going to be finishing the table, around about mid-table?
I think if you'll get a sort of a difference in opinion across Orient fans. I think the club wanted to improve on where we were last year. So again, we've seen a journey that's taken us to about 14 games ago, where we probably were going to get some improvement, but not get to the playoffs. And then Ross Embleton was relieved of his duties, and Joby McAfee took in interim management's role. And with 14 games now since Joby sort of come into and joined the management team, we've won 6, drawn 4, lost 4. Our recent run of form, the last 5 games, not been good enough for anyone trying to get into the playoffs. But more importantly, if you got into the playoffs with that run of form, we would have really struggled. So going back to the squad, I think if you talk to a lot of our O's fans, is that a lot of people say we've still got a National League squad. It doesn't look as good when you're watching it week in, week out as probably you see it from afar. Yes, we've got some good players in there, but across the strength and depth is very limited. And very much this season, I think we've got 7 players left and the rest of the players are out of contract. And I really feel we're going to have a real big clear out this year of those players. And whoever's the manager next year, it's going to have to sort of work very hard. But more importantly, I do feel it's necessary now, because we've probably become too cosy over the last few years for obvious reasons. With players, with staff, and I just think it needs new ideas. And if Joby does get the job, I think he needs a stronger supporting cast.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was looking at the way things have gone in the last few games, especially. There's a lot of similarities between Carlisle and Leyton Orient at the moment, in that we look like our chances of the playoffs are totally gone, and then we go on this great run to get ourselves just in touch. And then these last 4 or 5 games are just what's cost us that chance to keep up with the Salfords and the Forest Greens and the Newports of the world at the moment. But what you mentioned, interestingly, about squad turnover, is one place where we're in a good position for next season at Carlisle, in that we've got most of our squad that we want to keep all signed up for next season. So we're in a weird position like that. Is it probably maybe just a little bit too late, that run to get close to the playoffs, do you think, in terms of that? And obviously the last few games, I mean, the Southend game's the one that stands out to me for you guys in terms of a poor result, because when we played them, they were absolutely god-awful side.
Yeah, so for us as fans, that was the game we had to win, not for any other reason than we needed the 3 points to get us closer to the playoff. Is that they're a local rival, they're a club that a lot of Orient fans dislike for obvious reasons, but more importantly, when we went down to the National League, they weren't very supportive, and they were very vocal in that. So there was a lot of Orient fans saying, "Look, we want to do the same to them." I get that, but the players just didn't turn up. It was awful. It was one of the worst games of football to watch. We were lethargic. One of the things that's been sort of said from the club is that the board have spoken with the players that are potentially going to be released this season already. They spoke to them at Easter, and it seemed a little bit over the last few games, those players have gone, you know what, I'm not going to give 110% for a red shirt, because if I get a broken leg, broken ankle, what's going to happen to my career next year, because I'm going to be out of contract. And I get that as well, because from my perspective, I would probably do the same, especially if I'm trying to get a job elsewhere. So they know they've been released. I wouldn't say our starting 11 would all have been told they've been released, but I would have said quite a few of them have been across the squad and know that their sort of days at Orient are numbered. And it looked like, especially on Saturday, they looked like a team who didn't care. It looked like a mid-table team who are safe. They've already got their flip-flops on. They're looking to get their jab and get themselves on a beach somewhere in Europe, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's funny that, because we looked the same on Saturday against Harrogate. We were absolutely awful. We didn't turn up. Harrogate should have won that game comfortably, and how we got a draw from it, I don't know. Yeah, last night against Cheltenham, we dominated the game. We should have won it. And it's frustrating. You look back and you think sometimes, why can't you get those performances from your teams? It's just the way it is. How do you think Joby McAnuff is getting on as manager then? Do you think he's someone who's the right man for the job long term, or would you rather see an experienced man come in for the role?
Do you know what? I'm really got mixed opinions on it, and I probably like a lot of Orient fans, yeah? So the bit I like about Joby, he knows the club. He's got a great pedigree, isn't he? He's got a fantastic pedigree as a player. He's well connected, etc., etc., etc. But he's never had a management job in his life, right? But as he said, he's worked under some really good managers. Fantastic. That's useful to a certain level. My bit is with Joby, I think, where Ross fell down as well. We had a very inexperienced backroom staff. So he had a gaffer who didn't really know what he was doing. It's new to the job, and then the rest of the staff the same. What if Joby does get the role? And I really hope the club stands by those decisions. They bring in their own backroom staff, and again bring in some experience, whether that's experience from a manager who's been in a role previously, or another senior pro who's played at a good level, worked for lots of good gaffers, and can bring some fresh ideas. That is the problem with Orient at the moment, is the ideas. We look so lethargic. We set up the same 4-3-3. We've done it now for nearly 2 seasons. It doesn't get the results we would want. We don't seem like we want to change that to affect a game. So on that note, it's quite sad. So then you look at that, you think, is Joby the right man? Because he's going to come in, just do the same as we've done before. The bit I think, and again, if we were in your position where we had a lot of players still signed on for next year, I think we would probably need an experienced manager to come in and being able to say, look, set the stall out very quickly, because I just think people have got comfortable, and that is such a difficult thing to sort of commoditise or explain. But I just think over the last couple of years, you've had an assistant manager come in to become the first team manager for the obvious reasons when Justin passed. And then don't forget, he was the intermediary between the first team manager and the players. So as number two, now he's had to step up, and they brought in the new number two who's had a fairly limited managerial career themselves. And I just think we're just void of ideas. And I say, if Joby comes in, they give him the support, give him the budget to go and sign some fantastic signings for us, and also bringing some experience in the back room, I'm supportive of it. If it's going to be business as usual, the same team that's going to end this season from a managerial perspective, my bit is it's going to come down to not my vote. And what really, and a lot of fans don't want to see, is that Joby gets given the job and it all doesn't go to plan next season. He ends up on the scrap heap like Ross Embleton. And guess what? That guy deserves more than that, just from his career alone. Forget if you like him or don't like him as a person, but his career alone, he needs a bit of respect. And I think I would hope the club, if they do appoint him, give him the opportunity to put a stamp on this team, but more importantly, bring his own staff.
So what's the aims then for next season? Where do you think you need to strengthen then, Julien? Presuming McAnuff keeps the job, or if anyone who comes in, where do you think they need to look to strengthen in your squad, do you reckon?
Do you know what? We don't know what other players have been offered contracts or out contracts, so that would be about the concern. So my biggest concern if we lose our goalkeeper, Lawrence Figure, who's been excellent for us this season. He's a championship-esque goalkeeper. I think one of the things that he likes about the Orient, and hopefully he stands by that, he's close to where his home is. His family doesn't have to uproot and travel off around the country. He's done that, got the T-shirt, and I think now with a very young family, he may want to sort of give himself another season or so with Orient. I think the other thing for him is that if you look around London and the sort of commutable areas, there's not many League One teams, So I think the where he would go to, he could go play for Luton or he could go up to Northampton. But again, they're in the same position. Northampton's the same position as us, but Luton a little bit further up the pyramid. But I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. So I hope we keep him. We need to get another centre back, So there's potentially risk of us losing Dan Happy. And also Akinola going back to West Ham. I'm not sure we're going to sign him just due to his contract's ended at West Ham. I just don't know we have the appetite to sign him. But I think across the back four, we've got some comfort in sort of Adam Thompson coming in and doing a good job before he broke his ankle. Turley probably giving another year. So we need to make sure we get a full centre half in there. And then left and right back, I think they're going to be our weaknesses next season. We've got Sam Ling and Joe Widdowson both out of contract. There's rumours that Sam Ling's going to go for obvious reasons. His dad's the director of football, and I think the kids had enough of being sort of tarnished with that brush. And then Joe Widdowson's is a good National League player. He's a good backup. We've always, even with James Brophy playing left back, we've always needed someone else to sort of challenge for that. And then you look across that midfield. We've got two midfielders on for next season. Both are holding. If Joby's not going to play, if he does take the managerial role up, we need sort of replacements in there. And then you go up top. It depends on if we keep the likes of Connor Wilkinson, keep the likes of Danny Johnson, DJ. If not, we need to go and replace those, because I think you're going to see a few of the the guys who have not just quite sort of got to the place where they need to, regards to goals and a number of appearances, will definitely be sort of released. So I think it's across the whole block, and that's the thing. That's the scary thing as an Orient fan, is that you look at that squad and you think, there's not many, Benny, we want to keep, Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of building. And I really hope our director of football and our upstairs guys are already having that sort of that momentum to getting players in. And before you know it, it'll be the end of the season in a week's time or so, 2 weeks' time, and then it'll be pre-season before you know it. And I think we will just need to get those players in. So it's a big worry for Orient, and it's something that we've not experienced in over recent years. And when these guys came in, took over from our mad owner, Mad Frank, previously. These guys have been quite consistent, and we've seen players that sort of stayed around for multiple seasons. This is the first time that we don't have that privilege.
Yeah. How much have you missed going to games this season then? Because it's been a long, it's not even 12 months, is it? I suppose it's 15 months, I suppose, really it'll be by the time we get to the next season. And not being able to go to games, I mean, you must be really looking forward to getting back to matches at Brisbane Road. And I've seen there's some work being carried out as well. I think they're doing some work on what's the away stand as well.
Yeah, so the old East stand, and they're redoing the roof, taking asbestos out, so we're not going to kill you as fans coming next season. Putting a new roof on it to make it look good and keep it watertight, and there's some other bits they're doing in that. But I think for me, as a fan, I think initially when you were watching the games from home, it was a bit of a novelty, wasn't it? It's thinking, look, I'm saving £50 just sitting in my front room watching this. You know, I'm not down the pub. I'm not going to get a dirty kebab on the way home, or whatever it may be. And as the season's progressed on, you've gone, I wish I was going to games, and then we had that little opening up, didn't we, with a few games that we was allowed in. I unfortunately didn't get to them. I was working away. My two boys went, and they said, Dad, it's amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. But then that sort of went off. And if I'm honest, since Christmas, my love of watching Orient has really gone out the window. And I think we've discussed this in our own podcast, is that when you're at a game, you've got 90 minutes, right? And you'll be no different than we are. You don't watch a football game for 90 minutes. You're either going to go and buy a drink, get a burger, you're talking to your mates, you've gone for a pee because you've had too many pints before the starts. It's all those things. You probably only consume 70-odd minutes of the game. Yeah. And at home, you're critiquing it, aren't you? You're watching the warm-up, you get the kick-off, you're moaning about it at half-time to yourself if you're not on the WhatsApp group, and then you're consuming the whole 90 minutes. And I think for us, one of the things a lot of us, and we met up as a podcast, social distancing, by the way, and one of the guys has got a pub. We went into the pub garden last week, and we were just talking. It was so nice just to sit around with your mates and just have a chat. And we actually didn't really talk about Orient. We were talking about everything else. But what we were saying, going back to the football, I've sort of fallen out a bit of love with it, really. And I really hope to reignite that next season with going to the games and sort of going back to what we were doing. And then you don't really care when you win, lose, or draw, because you're getting the other experiences that football's all about as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm hoping that Orient away is one of our first away games next season, and we can all meet for a pint in the is it the Coach and Horses? Is the
you're more than welcome. And that's the thing, is that we, as we've spoken to you more times, I think we've spoken to our own family this season. Yeah. No, any other person, not just podcast, just due to the games being called off. But I think for me, it's that it'd be nice to have that chat, you know, and that rivalry does. In League Two and even the lower league, it's not as there as it is up as you go up the pyramid. And actually, we're all football fans. That's the bit that sits behind us all. We'll enjoy a good day out, a bit of banter. Yes, you always want to win over your local rivals and what have you, but reality is you just want to enjoy the day. And that's one thing I don't think a lot of us have experienced recently.
Absolutely not. Before we finish up and get on to the predictions, I've got to ask you about a man that links both clubs, a man who's hugely popular with fans of both clubs, Jabo Abere. Just generally, what a guy he is, and you know, how popular is he still down the Orient?
Jabo, what a player! It's I think again, because he joined us at such a young age and he developed at Orient and went on and had a fairly decent career, as you know. It's just a nice bloke, isn't he? It's nothing to dislike. As you've probably had players that leave you guys, have gone to rivals or gone somewhere else in the football pyramid, and then when you see him return, you can't wait to throw stuff at him. You really have that despising moment. But Jabo, definitely, you can see it, and you've seen him when he's played for you and come back home, we call it, you know, he's got a really well received, isn't he? He's got a round of applause, and I think the last time he played for you guys, I know it's some time back, but I think he went to Cambridge at the end of his career at Cambridge, didn't he?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So even at Cambridge as well, where I think we was a game, he either we was warming up or what have you, but he gets a round of applause, and he's a great lad, and I wish him all the best, because you look at players like that, there's not many around now, are they? You can honestly say who are our fans' favourite. May not have been the best striker in the world, may not have given you all the goals and the thrills that you have from certain players who go club to club to club, but he's a loyal chap, and he's been very good for you and very good for us.
Indeed, indeed. Well, let's finish up then, Julien. Go on, let's have a prediction for this weekend. Doesn't matter, does it really, does it? Because neither of us are making the playoffs. What do you reckon is going to happen?
7-7 draw. Yeah, there'll be a load of kids in there. There'll be players you've never seen all season, and I think they'll go with no goal. No, do you know what? We did you 1-0, didn't we, in March? And that was lucky.
It was a dreadful game that was.
It was. Yeah. So I think from us, it really depends on two things. Two things are, if Joby's getting the job and he wants to end the season well, to show those players who are in probably two minds to signing a new contract that Orient's the place to be, or if Joby is not being decided and he's thinking, you know what, let's go and play some of those players that have not had the chance this season and give them the opportunity. So if it's the second one, I think we'll get beat. If it's the first one, I think we'll either nick it for 2-1. Or 3-2, or alternatively, if it's the other one, I think we could get beat or get a nick or draw. So it's a difficult one for me, and like you said, I don't really care now. If anything, I'll watch it because it's you guys. If I'm honest, I may not have watched it otherwise, but I think we've forged a relationship with you guys. You're the furthest team away from us, and I think just nice to see the last one out. See how it goes, and then really been looking forward to next season.
Yep. Thanks for that, Julien, and hopefully we'll catch up with that point in the Coaching Horses next season.
Yeah, it'll be on us, no problem at all, Lee. Thank you for inviting us on, but more importantly, thank you for coming on the LODown as well.
Well, thanks again to Julien for taking the time to speak to us about all things Leyton Orient. Good to hear they're doing a little bit of improvement work on the away stand at Leyton Orient, replacing the roof there, so get rid of the asbestos so they're not putting our life at threat. So there you go. But yeah, Leyton Orient, quite a lot of sort of similarities between us and them, really, especially over the last couple of months, isn't there, really, and the way things have gone. They look like they were potentially pushing and getting close to that playoff place.
Especially when they won up here.
Yeah, exactly. But then the last 4 or 5 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, it's just faltered again, hasn't it? And losing against Southend, especially with that being a local derby and them being so dreadful this season, that must feel like a proper gut punch to them, mustn't it?
Yeah, that was probably the game that finished it really for them. It's they've had a bit of a strange season, Orient, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, Julien was saying there that their squad is still largely the squad that got them out of the National League, because they've had such a weird couple of years. Obviously, they got up, and then sadly, Justin Edinburgh passed away before he had a chance to even manage them in the Football League. And they've just not been in turmoil, but they've just sort of been treading water, maybe the right phrase, I think. They've just been sort of, okay, let's be solid in the Football League to start. They've got a 5-year plan to get themselves into League One, which is imminently sensible, actually. A lot of clubs talk about 5-year plans to get the Championship and Premier League and mad stuff like that. They're saying, let's take it easy and let's rebuild this club, because they were a mess, weren't they, for a while?
Yeah, when you look sort of at the squad and what they've done, with some decent additions in the summer, Orient could be a team that could be up there.
Yeah, especially if they can keep hold of Lawrence Vigoro, the keeper. I mean, he looks a really good standard keeper for this level. But yeah, it feels like it'd be interesting to see whether Joby McAnuff gets the job full time there. He seems a very popular guy, especially as a player. And as they were saying there, Julien, he was saying that the big thing for them is whether they put an experienced head alongside him. Want to carry on with the coaching staff. They need probably to get someone in there, don't they?
It would be similar to a Simpson and Booth type situation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's the way they're probably looking at it. In terms of current form, they're one place below us in the last 6 games form table. In 19th, we're in 18th. The draws have basically just killed our form. We were near the top until recently. Currently 11th place on 61 points. Basically, it's the battle for 10th place, this, isn't it? I don't think we're going to finish much higher than 10th, because there's a 4-point gap up to Exeter above us now, so it's difficult to overtake that. Like I said, when you look at the squad, there are some good players in there. It's just whether consistency seems to be really a big problem for them, doesn't it, really, in terms of getting them to perform on a weekly basis. You look, Danny Johnson looked like a real goal scoring threat first half of the season. He's barely threatened since the turn of the year, hasn't he? It's a real shame for them that he's not really found that form again.
Yeah, I mean, teams like Orient, the way football's changed, they're probably a classic example of how it's affected them. Many years, well, not many years ago, but someone like Orient would likely pick up young lads from West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham, who'd been released. But now with these academies being so full of players from abroad, etc., that they tend to lost a little bit of that. The likes of Orient or a Millwall or, the Gillingham sort of teams, they would pick up players who would turn out to be decent players. It doesn't seem to happen as much these days.
Do you think the problem is as well that these Premier League clubs, they have their under-23 squads and they keep these players sometimes to the 23, 24.
Yeah.
And then when they do come out and they go to clubs like Orient, they've barely played any football over the last 3 or 4 years, like men's football really. And they're not ready for it, are they? That's the problem. They're not understanding it.
Instead of playing these sort of under-23 leagues, a year on loan at somewhere like Orient would probably be super beneficial to them,
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the problem is. I mean, they've got that lad on loan from West Ham, and they clearly rate him quite highly. They're saying there that hopefully they could get him permanently, but they're not convinced. They think he'll probably go to a League One club because he's out of contract with them at the end of the season. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It's one of those clubs, isn't it, later on? Like I said, they're a proper football league club, and they're having them back in the league after their little spell in the National League was really good. And I've got so many good memories of going down to Orient to watch games, and it is some of our fans who barely ever go to away games might not know, but it genuinely is one of the best away games.
Yeah, I've a little bit of a soft spot for Leyton Orient because I lived in the area for about 18 months with work, and I actually went to watch them a couple of times midweek. I went to watch them against Leeds, which was a great night, and they're quite similar to ourselves in a way. I find, they're a team with there's potential there. There is, but the natural draw of the area, a lot of the fan base have moved sort of outwards now. It's a very multicultural area now, Orient, Leyton. And, a lot of the fan base have sort of moved out to Essex, which is why they sort of see Southend, as we've mentioned, as a bit of a derby game. So, and
they're probably not helped as well by the fact that West Ham have basically encroached into their area by moving
big time.
I mean, when you get the tube up to Leyton, you can see the Olympic Stadium, can't you, as you're going up, so that tells you just how close they are. And
I remember what's his name, wasn't very happy.
Barry Hearn.
Barry Hearn wasn't very happy when it happened. He was sort of saying, if anyone should play in that stadium, it should be Leyton Orient, because you're on our manor, which he was right,
Yeah, because clubs aren't supposed to be allowed to encroach or move into closer areas to other clubs, aren't they? I think there's FA rules about that, and they took it to court, and I think they got a settlement from it, possibly. I imagine that money disappeared with the Italian fellow who was in, possibly legally, I should say, allegedly there. But yeah, it does feel like that they're a club that are recovering from some absolutely shocking ownership, and we know how long that can take to get your club back into a proper shape, can't you? But it does seem like they're fairly well run now, and they've got a tidy little stadium as well, even with the old stand there on the other side. It's not a bad view there for the away end, is it, really? And it'd be interesting to see next season go down there again. I'd be really looking forward to going to the Coach and Horses having a pint as we do every time we go down.
I've actually stopped in the Coach and Horses as a resident for a week, which was the room we had. It's such a big building, you don't realise till you go in the upstairs that they do rooms for like working folk, like builders, etc. And I think we had a 12-bedded. It was almost a dormitory. Yeah, it was big, but that was just temporary while we found more permanent digs in the area.
Yeah. In terms of that, we'll get into the team news in a minute, but what would you do if you're Chris Beech this game? I think he sort of hinted he might do a little bit of changing of the team and give other players a run up then this season. What would you do if you were manager now, Dan? Would you look to make change? Who would you look to bring in potentially to feature in these last few games?
Well, I would like to see Feeney get a little run out. That might not be till the last game.
Yeah,
I think obviously there was a reason he only played an hour midweek in the reserves. they obviously think highly of him. I think he deserves a run out. The obvious one is Scott. You know, people are desperate to see him. It'd probably be a little bit unlucky on Zanzala, but I think Zanzala's done enough to prove his worth to us.
Yeah.
And I think based on his 2 substitute appearances, Ethan Walker deserves a start up front. If we do go back to the 3, you know, Coyote's probably done enough. But he's scored in the last 2 games, so he can't be dropped, can he? You know,
realistically.
But it would be nice to sort of see a front 3 of Scott up front with Walker and Coyote, you know.
Yeah, give them a run out.
A little bit of change. They deserve a run out.
Yeah, it's kind of those weird ones in it. I'm sure they want to play in every game, but we don't really need to see Luis Alessandro play in these games because we know what he's capable of. He's going to be here next season. Amari Patrick might want to prove a point in those 2 games.
Yeah,
possibly, I don't know,
we've already said as well that we might see Alessandro sort of morph more into a squad type player next season. You know, he might come off the bench instead of starter, but you know, it'd be a good experienced head to bring on if we're in a tight game. But
mind you, we thought that this season, didn't we? We thought he was squad player. He played most of the games. So
it would be nice to see a little change in midfield. I think Charters deserves a run out.
Yeah, I think give Mellish a rest because we know what Mellish can do, and he's played well actually in the last few games. To be fair, but you know, give him a rest before the end of the season.
And Divine probably deserves a little bit of a run out at some point again.
Yeah,
and the defence, it's whoever's fit in the middle, isn't it?
Basically, isn't it? Yeah. Well, if Divine gets a run out, you might just get a run out at a right back. Not much else. But no, that's fair enough. That I think I'd like to see Dixon on the bench as well. Maybe get him out in one of those games. I think he's been a bit unlucky, and clearly we want to use him next season and whatnot. And I think I'd like to see Fishburne on the bench as well.
For the last game at home, get
him on the bench and throw him on for the last 15, 20 minutes or something like that. I think the lad's done well, and he's clearly shown he's capable of, you know, earning himself a decent deal. So let's move on to team news then. So looks like Rob McDonald might return after his dead leg against the Bolton match. Reece Bennett possibly out for the season, we reckon, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no rush to rush him back now, is there?
Why risk him? I mean, for his own benefit as much as anything, really. Yeah. There's no point risking him in those 2 games. Interestingly, it's one thing I didn't actually mention when we were talking about the Cheltenham game. Good to hear David Raven on the Kirk comms, isn't it? I really enjoyed it. I thought he was really knowledgeable, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was a big David Raven fan when he was at the club, and I know I think it was one of the fans panellists was on the match pre-game, and he sort of said, you know, he thought Raven was probably slightly underrated in his time at Carlisle.
Yeah,
which I think was a fair comment because I thought he was an excellent player. I was quite gutted when we let him go, to be quite honest.
I always kind of felt like he was a very good right back for us, but I think eventually we could have shifted him to centre back. And
when he did play games at centre back, he looked very, very good. But you know, he carved out a decent career up at Inverness, and you know, he actually announced that he's still playing for Marine next season. So he's obviously fantastic. Enjoying it, isn't he?
That's really good news. So I mentioned Raven there because he spotted this. He was quite smart, actually. When Joe Riley came off against Cheltenham, he spotted that he'd been limping for a little bit just before that. So I do wonder if Riley might be a doubt for this game. Again, that's where you could make a change, potentially.
Yeah, you could bring Divine in.
At that point. Morgan Feeney could feature potentially. Obviously played for the reserves this week. But Jamie Armstrong and Brendan Dickinson are out for the rest of the season, so they definitely won't feature in this game. Predictions, Dan?
3-3 draw.
You know what? I was going to say exactly the same as you. I thought it's going to be mad. Both teams are like, sorry, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for 10th place. You know, I can see this being a proper ding-dong, decent game of football. I really can.
Yeah, really, really. I agree with you. I'll go 3-3. Are you going to pick some goal scorers for once? Or
Oh, I'm going to say...
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Ethan Walker. Oh. I think he'll get a start, hopefully. Yeah. Scott will score even if he comes off the bench. And let's hope Feeney plays, he can have a goal.
I thought you were going to say Magnus Norman there. I thought you were going to change your mind from Farman. I'm going to go, I think Coyote's going to get another goal. Taylor Charters will start and he'll score. And why not? Callum Guy's finally going to get that goal. I keep saying he's been getting all season in a game that means nothing. So there you go. So that's the predictions out of the way. Let's move on to the X-Files section, Dan. Quietish week, but a few interesting bits in there.
Yeah, goal scorers first of all. The goal machine, Charlie Wyke, with another couple.
Yeah,
he's also nominated for League One Player of the Season.
Yeah,
which makes no surprise given the amount of goals he scored. Angelo Balanta scored again for Dagenham. Mark Ellis. He's become some sort of goal scoring guru at Notts County.
Well, those two, haven't they? Balanta and Ellis seem to be scoring for fun at the moment.
Yeah. Naki Wells for Bristol City, Paddy Madden at Stockport, and Ryan Bowman scored late on for Exeter midweek, which unfortunately wasn't good news for us.
Well, not good news for Grimsby either, was it? Pretty much, but yeah.
Other news, former left centre-back Macaulay Gillespie has turned down a new deal at Brisbane Roar. There's a lot of disappointment at Brisbane. I think he was Player of the Season.
He was. He was.
I think I read that Tom Aldred has signed a new deal.
He's had a 3-year deal with them. That's a lovely old job, isn't it? 3 years out in Brisbane.
You're not going to say no to that, are you? But no, Gillespie's basically said, I've been Player of the Year. He obviously thinks he's deserving of a bit more of a deal. And apparently he's got clubs in fellow Australian clubs, England, Scotland, and also Germany.
Yeah, it's interesting, that one, isn't it?
So it'll be interesting to see. And one other ex-player, players maybe a bit of a
a stretch.
Yeah, Connor Simpson, the tall lad from Preston, has signed for Icelandic club Kordrengir. I don't know if that's how you say it.
Kordrengir.
I do have Icelandic friends. I could ask them, but yeah, Kordrengir. They're not one of the big boys in Icelandic football.
Yeah, you always see these players who are at non-league or lower league clubs in England always seem to be signing for Icelandic clubs around about this time of year, don't they?
Well, I looked, and he's a North East lad, isn't he, Simpson?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of North East lads tend to go out there. Yeah. And I do wonder if he's represented by a certain
agent, maybe.
Yeah. They're actually a second division team, so they're not the biggest teams. But
But it's interesting because Scarborough Athletic, who he plays for, said they expect that you should be back in a few months' time. I think it's only a short spell he's going to have out there. Yeah. Their manager, funny enough, is Darren Kelly, ex-United defender.
He of the big telly.
He of the big telly. He was selling his shirts on eBay the other week, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Nice fella by all accounts, Darren Kelly.
Just I think the fee just knackered him, didn't it?
Yeah, I think Roddy didn't really help with the way he built him up, and the crack about him being in Westlife at one point and stuff like that. So tell you what, we're gonna have to do an episode about those years of Cal United. One of the features, because someone was talking about. Cause you see, I put up that there's a thread. If anyone wants to go on my personal Twitter, it's at Lee Rooney, and I put up a thread of basically this Grimsby podcast have tweeted what's happened to them this season.
It's a good read.
Oh my god, it's what a soap opera it is. It's incredible when you go through it.
Our Roddy Collins years would absolutely blow it out the water.
Well, not even that. If you go a couple of years before that, the Mamcar Knighton years, we're going to have to do an episode of that, because I think some of our younger fans don't realise when they complain about
it was.
when they complain about things to do with the club now, just how mental the club actually was back then. Some of the things that happened.
I was discussing on the forum last night. What one fan had said that the League One years under Abbott were miserable, which astounded me. Genuinely astounded me. And fair play to the lad, he's given his reasons why, and that's his opinion.
Yeah.
But believe me, that some of the times under the Leyton Orient years into the Courtney and Collins era, it was an absolute basket case of a football club.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's 20 years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I stand by this fact that those who complain about Abbott and say he left us in a mess, don't put the blame entirely on him, because his budget was cut after that season. We finished 8th and just missed out on the playoffs. His budget was cut massively, and that's where it went wrong, because we didn't kick on after that season, and that's why we lost players like Zoko and Lubo and whatnot. So there you go. Okay, Dan. that's the X-Files bit done. What we're going to do now is, because next week we've only got one game to review and one game to preview, the final game of the season. We've got a listener question for next week, haven't we? We want your contributions. We want you to talk about something. I don't know if you want to go on this one, Dan.
Yeah, this is. I was on a supporters group meeting on Monday, representing the forum as usual, and part of the stuff they're getting new caterers. They're trying to look at what the offer is and that, and sort of part of that we've sort of decided on the podcast to give you an avenue to suggest what you would like to see, and we'll sort of collate it, mention the best bits on air, and we'll sort of collate it into a document to forward to the club, but hardly any fans for nearly 18 months by the time we're back next season, touch wood. What improvements would you like to see for the fan experience? We're talking bars, which the bars are actually scheduled for a bit of an upgrade in the main stand. There's a bit of work going on with that. The food offerings, ticket options, and basically any other facilities. This is a chance for you to let us know. We'll do a separate tweet once we launch this episode. We'll do a separate tweet to gather a few opinions. You can also email us or drop us a DM or whatever. But be interesting to see what the fans want. I mean, personally, I think it's just something decent to eat, a decent drink, and most fans will be happy.
Yeah, I think we put these things down over those options here. Obviously, the bars, food, ticket options, facilities. In terms of the bars, I mean, the biggest problem for me is the pints are crap. The choice of drinks crap. The quality of the drink you get is absolute rubbish.
Well, interestingly, the brewery is also up for renewal.
They've had the same brew for a while, haven't they? I think
yeah.
I can't remember. Is it Heineken?
I think it's Heineken. Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily Heineken that's maybe the problem, but the way the drink's kept and the way it's done, it's not good.
The main stand doesn't lend itself well with its age, and it's.
I don't know what the experience is like in the East End because I've not been in for so long. That's the problem.
People who don't go into the main stand, it is the rabbit warren of all rabbit warrens. There's doors and corridors everywhere, and you think they've got to like pipe drink around it and that. It's not conducive, but. You've got to sort of make do with what you have. So, if you have any ideas of stuff you would like to see, like I say, we'll put a separate tweet out, separate from the episode one, and fire it in with us, and we'll forward it all to the club.
Absolutely, and in terms of food, it's just good food.
Yes,
it's not hard, food, is it? The food you get outside at the Lakeland steak thing is great, and I buy food from there quite a lot. I can't remember the last time I bought food in the ground. It's that bad.
It always amazes me that we basically have a butcher owns our club. For all intents and purpose, Pioneer was basically a bit of a butcher shop, wasn't it? Yes, it's grown over the years, but I think it's incredible that we don't do something Cumberland sausage related. No, and the thing is, look at the club this season. They've had a good link up with the Viceroy, in terms of the the man of the match or the players' food after the game, and it's created a real good good little thing, and people get excited about it, whatnot. Why don't we have the specials for some of the midweek games where you get a little curry pot or something like that with some rice and something? People would love that. I'm sure that it's a nice little warm meal to have on a midweek game when it's a bit cold. Things like that. Just do one-offs and things. I'm sure it's not that difficult to have a giant pot of curry or something like that. People don't mind paying for good produce. So if you did a proper bun with a good piece of Cumberland sausage and I don't know, a Cumberland chutney in it, you don't mind paying £3 or £4.
Exactly. So when you pay £3 or £4, you get absolute dross. That puts people off going, doesn't it? Really. So there you go. And that's it, Dan. So what we'll do is we'll have a think about what we want as well, a little bit more in depth, and we'll put our bits in as well to that section. But that'll cover a decent part of next week's episode because, like I said, we've only got one game to review and one game to preview, and then obviously after that we've got the the week after we'll be reviewing the Walsall game, and we'll think about what we do instead of a preview bit in that episode because we'll have to do something different because there's not been nothing to preview, won't there? Yeah. Season over, it'd be weird. There you go. That's it. thanks, Dan, again for joining me. If you've got any comments or feedback, anything you'd like us suggest we discuss, please send them in via Twitter to @BruntonBugle or by email to bruntonbugle@gmail.com, or find us on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group. And also, we've got our own Facebook page now, Dan, haven't we? We finally got around to setting up.
Yeah.
So you can find us, just search for Brunton Bugle on Facebook and you'll find our page, and you like the page there, and we'll put all the posts up on there. We'll get people joining in on there as well in terms of the, doing stuff like the listener questions and things like that, which we'll maybe try and do as a regular feature next season, I think, maybe as a little short section on each episode. If you haven't already, remember you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, including Spotify, Acast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere you can get your podcasts, you will find us there, I think it's fair to say. Okay, Dan, so I'm loading the map up here to see if there's any new countries. We've got 2 new ones.
Ooh.
2 new players have entered the game, and they are Egypt and India.
Wow.
Big in India and Egypt. No, there you go. There's two big countries there. I think we've had Thailand before, haven't we? They're listed on the map. I'm pretty sure we've had them.
There is a couple of blues out in Thailand that I know of.
Yeah. So Egypt and India are the 2 new countries on the map.
Yeah.
So there you go.
What we'll do over the summer, we'll get an interactive map of the world. One of those that you can colour in the countries you've been to, except we'll colour in the countries that we've had a listen from, and we'll upload that on all our socials.
Yes, definitely. I mean, looking at this one, I only get the last 30 days or so on the analytics, but I can get the whole since we started, and I think there's a fair few countries. I think we've got every continent covered now, I think.
Yeah,
we definitely have North America. I mean, right now, actually, we've got every continent covered by the looks of things, yeah?
Yeah.
And there you go. Across all 6 continents.
What a football club.
We'll have to get a listener in Antarctica. That's the next aim, isn't it? Get one of the scientists out there to give a listen to it or something like that. It'd be brilliant. Dan, thanks again for joining me. We'll be back next, probably Wednesday or Thursday next week. See how it goes. We might try and get it recorded early, actually, because there's no midweek game. But
yeah, Wednesday's good for me, I would say.
Brilliant. So we'll be back next week. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the blues.
Up the blues.